Okay, today I'm reading chapter 2 of Stink's book, his smelly sneakers. And this chapter is called More Fun Than Earwax. Let's do a quick review of chapter 1. Stink and his class were going on a field trip to the Stinky Museum. I think it's called the Gross Me Out exhibit. And Stink was excited because they have a big giant nose, and he was going to go and see the big giant nose first. So we're on chapter 2, More Fun Than Earwax. Stink took an up-close and personal tour of the giant nose. He got attacked by giant nose hairs, peered down a big, ugly, bumpy throat, and skipped through the hall of mucus. He even learned how boogers are made. Not pretty. Having fun, Mrs. D asked him. Are you kidding? This is more fun than earwax, Stink told Mrs. D. And educational too, he added. Grown-ups love the E word. They liked to think you were learning stuff no matter what. Mrs. D smiled. Stink, you seem to be interested in the sense of smell. Maybe you'd like to try the Everybody Stinks exhibit. Nobody else seems to want to go near it. Mrs. D pinched her nose and shook her head. How smelly can it be? Stink said bravely. Mrs. D pointed to the far end of the exhibit. Stink strolled over and read the instructions. Match the body odor with the body parts they come from, Stink read aloud. Before Stink knew it, the whole class had gathered around him. Webster announced to the class, Hey everybody, Stink's gonna do the smell BO test. Stink wasn't so sure he wanted to smell BO, which stands for body odor, but he hated to let Webster and everybody down. So Stink mustered up all his courage, leaned over, put his nose right up to the bottle, and squeezed. He took one sniff and then scrunched up his face, clutched his chest, and crumpled to the floor. Ah! Everybody gasped, taking in what sounded like one big breath. Ha, ha, ha! Gotcha! Stink cried. They thought he fainted, but he didn't. He jumped back up. What did it smell like? Sophie asked. Feet, said Stink. It's not that bad, just smells like dirty socks when your feet sweat and you take your shoes off. Sounds bad to me, said Webster. Stink squeezed the next bottle. Ugh, this one smells like onion. Maybe garlic. Whew, bad breath, Stink said, waving his hand in front of his face. P.U., this one smells like my soccer shirt. Armpit alert. It's B.O., somebody shouted. He did it. He really smelled B.O., and he didn't even faint. After Stink smelled all the body part smells, he moved to the next station, rotten eggs. Dirt, perfume, mothballs, skunk, rotten cabbage, dog breath, old fish, dead broccoli? Stink sniffed and sniffed his way through a dozen yucky, rotten smells. He made a few faces, but he guessed every single smell right. P.U., how do you do that? You didn't miss one, said Webster. I just follow my nose, said Stink, sticking his expert sniffer in the air. You always were nosy, said Sophie of the Elves, laughing. Some people have an excellent sense of smell, Mrs. D explained. I smell something too, said Sophie. Hamburgers! When do we eat lunch? Asked Webster. My digestion is empty. Class 2D sat at the picnic tables outside, munching on sandwiches. Mrs. D passed around flyers from the museum about a stinky sneaker contest being held at the park in 2 weeks. Stink read the flyer. It says, the all-time world's worst Super-Stinky sneaker contest. Wow, check it out. Can anybody enter? Anybody with smelly sneakers, said Mrs. D, chuckling. Stinks are the worst, said Webster, backing away from him. But my sneakers are so smelly, I had to wear rain boots today, said Sophie, showing off her pink polka dot boots. I bet I can win. My sneakers will beat the pants off yours any day, Stink told Sophie. But you haven't even smelled mine, said Sophie. Stink shrugged. I'm just saying, his sneakers just had to be the smelliest. But what if Sophie's were super stinky bad too, or worse? Well, I'm sure my daughter will want to enter the smell monsters, Mrs. D said, making air quotes with her hands. That's what we call her sneakers, smell monsters. So I hope to see some of you there in 2 weeks. Mrs. D asked them all about what they learned at the Gross Me Out Museum. I learned that even walruses have dandruff, said Eliza. I learned the words to the diarrhea song, said Patrick. Let's wait till after lunch to hear that one, said Mrs. D. I learned how to say fart in Spanish, said Jordan. Pedo. I learned that spit is gross, said Riley. I learned there are more critters in your mouth than people in Australia, said Sophie of the Elves. I learned that Stink is the best smeller in the world, said Webster. We should call you the Nose, said Sophie. You know how to smell better than a dog. Better than an ant, said Stink. Everybody looked at him. Funny. What? An ant has 5 noses, said Stink, nodding his head and tapping his honker. No lie. Okay, that brings us to the end of chapter 2. I had to put my glasses on because I couldn't see this small print. Here are Stink's stinky facts. Did you know that just 1 foot contains 250,000 sweat glands and oozes up to 2 cups of sweat every day? Yuck. No wonder sneakers are so smelly. And if some of you remember, we talked about that in class. We talked about how when you don't wear socks with your shoes get really stinky. And that's why, because we have so many sweat glands on our feet. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 2. Remember, when you do your summary, what happened first, what happened in the middle, what happened at the end. So first, Stink went and visited the giant nose, and he got attacked by nose hairs, and he looked down a bumpy throat, and he went down the hall of mucus. Then after that, the whole class watched Stink do the smell test, and he smelled all the yucky things and he fainted, but he didn't really faint. He was just kidding. But he got all of them right. He could tell what every smell was. And then at the end, Mrs. D told them about the Stinky Sneaker Contest. And Sophie is very excited to enter, and so is Stink. Okay, go write your summaries, and then I will be looking to see those, and we will do chapter 3 in the next video.